I
It's
guess we could
terrible. It's terrible. That's the
introspective.
funny part is that it's not funny.
It really isn't.
It really isn't. You're right.
But don't you get it? E.T. he's short for because he has short legs. So those who just missed the joke, because I recorded late, Joel's joke was, what is E.T. short for? And the
Don't give me
answer,
credit for this joke, man. I don't want this being preserved.
it's okay, they got the from Facebook bit. And the reason is because he has short legs. Right, and after that, welcome to Theola Gaming. This is our first of the split episodes on the podcast episode. These episodes are going to be a lot more focused on the discussion around a specific topic. There'll be an audio version of this as well as just a video, so that'll go up on my website of godandmind.com. And anyway, we'll get into it today. So our topic for today is, I'll do the introductions first. So with me here is Joel with the ET joke.
Hello. It's not my joke. It's terrible. Don't associate it with me, please.
We should all associate it with him forever. And Jacob
How you going?
and Adam.
Good evening.
And today we are going to be talking about aliens and aliens. And what I mean by that deliberately, I don't know. It just sounded cool to me. But what I mean by that is we're going to be
It's wordplay.
discussing...
Are you actually Eminem?
Yeah, pretty much. You'll never hear my rap. Yeah, we're discussing, first off, aliens like extraterrestrial aliens like ET. What we think about them, how we think they'll, if they're out there. We're going to be discussing that star thing that happened.
Star thing. Really? That's
Well, it doesn't have a
what you're
name.
calling it? Yes, it
The
does.
star thing, though.
KIC 8462852.
All right, we're going to be discussing
household name.
KIC something something. Totally not a king crab.
Ugh.
MWO joke. And yeah, it has stuff around it that I'll get Adam to talk about in a minute. But after this discussion, we'll be, well, sort of leading into that, we're going to be talking about human aliens as well. That is, people from other cultures, refugees, immigrants, that sort of thing, and how we treat those, and sort of comparing and contrasting the two. And with that, I'll hand over to Adam, who is currently doing his master's in astrophysics.
Astronomy and astrophysics, yes.
Yes, to talk to us about what the deal with
The star thingy.
star thingy is.
Yeah. Alright, so you may have seen it pop up in the news late last year. Basically, it blew up because people thought that we'd discovered, signs of extraterrestrial intelligence around a star.
Way to put a
And so
dampener
the
on it
star
straight
is-
away.
Yeah. I mean, so this star is, I guess, colloquially known as the WTF star. And you may think, what does WTF mean? I think I know what that means. In reality, it just means where's the flux. So, to step back a bit, this Where's the Flux was the title of a paper that was submitted online to the Online Physics Archive, AstroPH. And so they were talking about the variability observed of a distant star by the Kepler spacecraft. The Kepler spacecraft orbits about Earth, and what it does is it's supposed to look for exoplanets essentially. So exoplanets are planets orbiting stars other than, the sun. And it searches for them using the transit method. That is, when the planet passes in front of its host star and blocks some of its light. And so for reference, this the light blocking, the dimming of the star that you see for a planet even as big as Jupiter, as far as Jupiter is away, it only drops by about maybe 1% of the light. So you need to have very precise, very well calibrated instruments to be able to detect these things. The WTF star, on the other hand, it experienced a light dimming of up to 20%, which is huge. And so the paper associated with this was quite thorough in going over all the possibilities. Was it something that hadn't been calibrated out properly in the instrument? Was the star, was it a variable star, such as it goes through, periods of higher activity and lower activity? Was there a companion star that may have been interfering with the light curves? Was it, say, astrophysical in origin, such as like comets or debris from a massive collision? They ruled out the instrumentation effects because Kepler's pretty well characterized and they were pretty thorough with their data. And I think in the end, the most likely solution that they put in the paper was that many small masses in tight formation orbiting the star, I suppose. Though extraterrestrials weren't mentioned in the original paper, the many people in, I guess, popular science reporting jumped on this, and it snowballed and became absolutely huge to the extent that even SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, later conducted a radio search about the star for radio transmissions, but they didn't find anything. So that's essentially the background of it. Have I covered everything, Jesse?
I think so, yeah. There was something recently that I never actually read, unfortunately, that I think they ruled out one of the things, a comet or a dust storm, something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, there's been a number of follow-up papers on the issue, and I haven't had a chance to read them all because there's quite a few of them. But just considering the possibility of various alternatives, and so the reason why people jumped on the extraterrestrial possibility was that
It's awesome.
yes, it would be awesome, but because of something called the Dyson swarm, which is basically if your civilization gets to the point where you're, colonizing your solar system, the sun is, your star is a pretty good source of energy, so, you might want to put a whole bunch of solar panels orbiting your sun to collect the energy. And so a Dyson sphere is an entire sphere of these panels that completely enclose the sun and collect all its energy, whereas something like a Dyson swarm is, more of a cloud that doesn't entirely enclose the sun, but still is enough to, capture some of its energy. And so people jumped on the possibility that maybe this is what was causing the unusual light curves as extracted from Kepler. Maybe we were witnessing, a whole bunch of solar panels, an alien megastructure, if you will, passing in front of the star.
So, I'm not saying it was
there any other-
aliens, but it was aliens.
There's
Sure,
no
many
other
people would
physical
like it to be.
explanation of that, like, planets or moons or anything, or like
Oh, that's the
it'd be
thing.
huge planet. It'd be a huge planet, wouldn't it?
Well, for it to be it wouldn't be a planet. I think the most likely thing is some diffuse object, say, dust from a collision or a close cloud of comets passing through.
Oh yeah.
One of the possibilities I read was if another star passed close to this star, it would have knocked some of the objects from that star's Oort cloud, which is basically
Yeah.
a shell of icy bodies that orbit very, very, very far away. Beyond the orbit of Pluto in our solar system is our Oort cloud, and it might have knocked some of those in towards the center of the solar system. But the most likely possibility is something astrophysical in origin. but it's fun to speculate.
I guess because you don't really see it very often. There's not many other examples to go off.
Yeah, well, this is the first, I mean, to my knowledge, the most unusual, I guess, of the Kepler light curves. I mean, exoplanets do some, strange things. They orbit so close to their stars that the atmosphere of the star and the atmosphere of the planet are touching, or they're tidally locked such that the planet doesn't actually turn. They can be really big, they can be really small. But, this was just something much more unusual than that. And Kepler's looked at thousands, tens of thousands of stars and generated a few thousand planetary candidates. And so out of all of those, it's not common for something like this to be seen.
It's interesting.
So, what do people think? Are we alone in the universe?
As far as
Well,
intelligent
the
life,
universe is a very
probably.
big place. Like, a ridiculously big place, and we know so little of it. It's difficult to really say, but it seems likely that there is intelligent life somewhere else out there. As in, I feel like it would be more surprising if there wasn't.
I mean, when considering questions such as this, we've got large numbers in our favor. I mean, there's billions of stars out there, and there's a huge number of galaxies, and, perhaps not all of them are habitable, but I think the possibility that that Earth is unique would be vanishingly small. I mean, whether we say our galaxy is home to another form of intelligent life, I mean, it might be likely. It's hard to say, but that I think we're the only life, I think that's very unlikely. And Jesse, what are your thoughts?
I'm bad at launching rockets. But yeah, I'm with Joel on this one. I think the universe is really big, and like going from a god as creator in some capacity, not necessarily literal 6 days creation. That's not what this is about. But God as designer and creator in some way. Why would he make everything this big if it was just our one planet? It seems kind of pointless. So I reckon there's got to be something out there. What that is, whether we'll ever find it or not, and what his relationship is with that, I don't know. But I think there's something.
I think I think it's pretty unlikely there's a fully intelligent life out there. Might be some other stuff, but I don't
Why
know.
is that?
Um, well,
I
yeah,
mean, we're intelligent.
yeah, but just thinking about, I don't know, it's so unlikely. I don't know, it just seems like the part's coming from a good point of view of God's relationship with us, but I guess also just I know the universe is huge, but the odds of there being other intelligent life is also pretty slim. It'd be interesting to see if there's I guess you plausible region, but yeah, pretty hard to see the edge of the universe anyway, as it is. So it's kind of hard to gauge it.
I
You have to
mean,
get a lot of things right to get it.
this goes hand in, we always discuss things such as the Fermi paradox, which is, if the universe is so big and there are so many stars, why, don't we see evidence of other life? And,
Then
it
you have
comes
the
down
Calvin and
to...
Hobbes answer to that. The fact that there's intelligent life in the universe is proved by the fact that none of it's tried to contact us.
Hmm. But yeah, I mean, it also raises the question of, say, whether, perhaps we're not the first civilization, but are we the only one presently? It might be easy for, say, life to develop, but it might be very, very difficult for life to, say, leave its planet or leave its solar system
Yeah.
due to the, political issues and, climate issues and social issues that, might prevent that happening. It might be, more likely that intelligent species end by sending their climate amok, or in nuclear war, or they don't feel it's a good use of resources to leave their planet.
Or their
A
planet
huge
just
number of
dies.
reasons. Yeah, or it's beyond their control, such as, their star, or an impact from another astronomical body. There's a huge number of reasons, and, well, the science fiction authors have speculated for hundreds of years. And so were we to say, find intelligent life, say, a few weeks down the track, years, whatever, we, pick up radio signals that can be unambiguously attributed to intelligent life, or, they rock up on our doorstep, how would that, I guess, impact your faith? The question directed to all three of you.
Well, for me,
Well,
I
I
would.
don't think it affects it too much in terms of
Sorry.
faith. I don't know, it's kind of like, that's kind of cool, but it's kind of discovering more of the universe. It doesn't affect our faith directly, I don't think, that much. It's, I don't know. That's just for me.
There are certainly a lot of people for whom it would be a bad thing, but personally, I don't think it would affect me that much. Although, I suppose, we're saying just any aliens, right? So,
Oh, well, in my example, I meant
dep-
intelligent life, but
well,
would
yeah,
it affect it
obviously,
differently?
well, yeah, depending on what the intelligent life has to say about their experience of the universe, right? I mean, it's quite possible that the insight gained from dialogue, on the assumption that dialogue could be had with this intelligent life, that might confirm aspects of my faith. But it's also quite possible that it could be devastating for it, because I've got no way of knowing what this intelligent life could bring to the table, so it's difficult to say. I mean, if they rocked up and were, like, hey, there's no God and here's proof, that'd be awkward, I guess is what I'm sort of getting at, But vice versa, if they were like, hey, we have, like, proof of God, like, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, yeah, it's just difficult to say, because it could be anything.
Well,
Possibilities are almost endless.
but for me, it's kind of like we discover new species on Earth. That's awesome scientific discovery. Discovering from you know, internet, like from another planet. That's a really awesome scientific discovery. I, I don't know, unless I haven't really looked into that, but I don't think it's huge theological repercussions. Like, as in game-changing ones. It's kind of like, that's cool. It's really cool. Really, really cool. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's changes faith-related stuff.
for me, it's not really any different to say when we discovered the Native Americans or any of the other races that we didn't know about before well, we being ancestral Europeans, that we didn't know about before, that aren't even mentioned in the Bible, that sort of thing. It's, hey, we discovered um, there's a new people out here, a new intelligent life. And, well, partly the anthropologist in me, but I'd be fascinated seeing what their beliefs are and how they sort of intersect with Christianity as I see it. It's like that's kind of it's a big area of interest for me at the moment, looking at all the world religions and the various aspects that are in common and how these line up with what the Bible says, and whether how each culture sort of has a bit of the picture of the Bible, and the Israelites were the only ones to get the direct revelation.
Interesting answers, because I'm just curious to know, because I don't have, a faith informing my life. So I was wondering if you'd react differently to, I guess, how I would.
Well, I think I was pretty excited, like, pretty big deal. But yeah, it's one of those things, like Jesper says, like discovering new human race, or well, not human race, but discovering previously discovered group of people, individuals, animals, species, whatever you call it. So yeah, just a cool thing, not a okay, my life is now a lie.
Wait, just thinking. So we're talking about, it'd be similar to discovering the Native Americans, right? How long do you reckon it'd be before someone came up with a Mormonism-style religion where Jesus, after his resurrection, went and visited these aliens?
Oh dear.
They've got their own book that restores the Bible,
I know
and
you have that
mate,
book. I saw you with it last night.
I'm so ready for that to be a thing. I would be signing up for alien Mormonism. Oh dear, not real, but like a little bit real.
Wow.
It's also possible something like that did happen. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
this
Jesus
is true.
is
This is
savior
true.
to all the worlds, and
All the nations?
yeah, maybe they have their own, like God sent them their own Messiah
I
or
don't like
things
to
like
speculate
that.
on that.
Yeah, it's completely irrelevant to us. That's kind of the important thing I see in it. Like, I think I never really got why people reckon it'd be a big challenge to our faith, but I think part of it's that the Bible doesn't tell us about it. But there is a lot the Bible doesn't tell us about. The Bible tells us about the things that are important for our faith and those that were
Relationship with
important for
God,
the
yeah.
Israelites at the time. They don't tell us how to
There are so
react
many
to
people.
online
Sorry.
banking or even things like gay marriage. It's not really around at the time. And
Yeah,
so there's all manner of different, um, like it wouldn't tell us about aliens because what possible reason is there? Even if there are out there, there's every good chance that we'll never actually see them or interact with them. So what would be the point?
I do suppose at the time that the concept of extraterrestrial life, when it wasn't even clear that the Earth revolved around the sun, might have been a bit foreign or misconstrued.
So quick history
yeah, it's worth.
correction. We've known the Earth revolved around the sun since like ancient Greece. Like that's 700 something BC.
Oh, it was controversial though, because it was Copernicus that proved that. Hey,
Well, that's just because like a
Yeah.
lot of
like we've
things,
known
the
the
Middle
Earth.
Ages kind of lost and changed a lot of things that went on. Like the whole
Yeah, so
Renaissance thing
science by
happened because we
convenience.
started discovering those old classical literatures of the Greeks and the Romans.
Well, also, Middle Ages were science by convenience. This is a science because I'll cut your head off if you don't believe it. There's that too.
There's a definite misconception I know about like, back in the day they didn't know the world was round, but in actual fact, yeah, that's something that was known ages back. I didn't know that heliocentrism came under the same thing, but there you go. I've learned a thing. Pretty good
Uh,
thing to learn.
so
I
I
was gonna
also just
say,
realized that I messed up and I was thinking heliocentric, round Earth. So
yeah.
yeah,
So
I
heliocentrism
don't actually
definitely
know.
wasn't proved until Copernicus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Copernicus was the
Okay.
first one. The round to the Earth was proven much earlier. It was a lot easier to prove actually.
Yes. But the thing I was going to say, I think there's a lot of people who have issues with this idea of, um, the whole aliens thing, because of like young Earth creationist style literalist beliefs, that sort of say, well,
You've like completely
sort
cut
of
out,
like,
Joel.
oh, sorry, okay, um,
Last thing we heard
yeah,
was young Earth style creationist beliefs.
yeah, like biblical literalism sort of thing. Am I coming through all right now?
Seem to
Yeah,
be, yeah.
it's much
Hello?
better.
Yeah, okay, cool. So biblical literalist, young earth creationist kind of views that say what's written in the Bible is all you need to know, and as we interpret it, it is correct, and anything more that you add to that is false. You know? This attitude that completely closes itself off to any new knowledge and the possibility of reinterpreting the existing interpretation in light of that. So a lot of people take this approach to the Bible and would find it very difficult to come to terms with something like the discovery of aliens because they're not in the Bible, and the idea of them being a thing doesn't sit comfortably with their interpretation of Scripture. Therefore, what? So there's a lot of people who won't even grapple with this idea of are there aliens out there, because to them it's anathema to their faith. But if you don't have that preconception, and I think we don't, so it's harder for us to sort of like relate to that. But for a lot of people, like, aliens is a thing that, you know, it can't possibly exist.
So, for example, the Earth revolves around the sun issue was because there's a lot of that was because in Joshua, it says God made the sun stand still, and so people are like, well, the Earth can't be going around the sun because the sun stood still. That sort of
Luther wrote,
hyper
Copernicus is a
literal.
fool for saying this. Yeah, but he was wrong, so. But yeah, literalism, it's a thing that's been around for a while, and it's a frustrating thing. What can you do? I mean, if some people are going to let their faith hinge on that, okay, fair enough. I don't find it a thing. That sounds super arrogant to say, but like real though. You know, I get that for some people it's a faith-defining stance, but for me,
I used to be young Earth creationist growing up, but then I realized that's not actually the Bible doesn't actually say anything explicitly that makes it have to be that way. And it's like and because science and faith can actually work together pretty well, for the most part.
yeah.
In fact, for almost all of it. And yeah, it's doesn't actually have to be exactly 6,000 and still hold the full weight of the Bible. So yeah,
Yeah, and if anyone's actually read
that's
my
something I
website, they know that my big article series is on looking at Genesis through like evolutionary sort of mindset. How do these things line up with scientific accounts of events? Summary generally pretty well. There's some errors, but not like inconsistencies. Calling them errors is a bit wrong. But yeah. So how do you actually first? How would discovering aliens change your worldview, Adam, if at all?
I don't think it would be a significant change. I mean, it'd be a shift in perspective. You'd have to go from, thinking about, because, at the moment you can say think on a community basis or on a national basis or a global basis, but, your thinking would have to shift a bit beyond that. It'd be global, and then whatever the connection is between, humanity and extraterrestrials. But it'd be an interesting scientific discovery. It'd be an interesting, cultural discovery. I'm not sure it would be, hugely. It wouldn't hugely change my mindset on anything, though.
It'd really open up the number of potential contenders in the Mr. Universe competition, for one thing.
It would. And I guess it would be on a more, I guess, if I with a skeptical point, the discovery of extraterrestrial life would immediately make it much easier. Easiest maybe the wrong word, but at the moment, if there are people called astrobiologists who, study or research, what life might be like outside of Earth, and they say look to the extremophiles that exist on Earth, such as the creatures that live near deep sea vents, or that can survive in harsh conditions like extreme cold, extreme heat without much oxygen. But in reality, we only have one data point for, life, and that's life on Earth. Discovery of extraterrestrial life would give us at least a second, which would be, quite significant.
So how do you think we'd react? Or how? Well, I guess we can't really go on how they'd react. But how do you think we'd react to, like, as a species, to finding alien life?
Not
I
well.
guess it'd just be the next step in, realizing that, I guess, Earth or humans don't really have a special place in the, our galaxy or our, the universe. Because, first it was realizing that the Earth isn't the center of the universe, that we go around the sun. Then it was that there's, many other stars, and that the stars make up a galaxy, and that we're not the only galaxy. And this would just, tell us that not only is the universe huge and empty, but we're not alone. And, what our thinking on various matters are over the centuries. Another species might have come to completely different conclusions. And I'm sure not everyone would be accepting of it. I guess some people may even deny it, or the opposite may happen. I guess I could imagine people forming cults, or possibly, new forms of, worship, I guess, over these extraterrestrials, especially if they were technologically advanced.
I'd have to imagine war is a very distinct possibility. I mean, of course, we could discover a highly aggressive alien species, or one that wants to add us to a growing empire, or we could even discover one way technologically inferior to us. And then we have, like, discovering the Americas all over again. Or they could just do the same thing to us. Like, lots of variables, but so this is why I like looking into history, because it sort of tells you about people. History is like an object lesson in how
We'll do the
humans think and work.
stupidest thing possible. Yep.
Well, the
So
thing is, they're
predictable.
already going to know the stupidest things about us before they even meet us, because we've got our expanding radio bubble.
Yeah, we're
First they're
broadcasting
going
it
to
all.
get our our 50s TV shows.
Dude, they'll come for Kanye West. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be
President
amazing.
Kanye 2020.
I mean,
Oh
something
no.
we also have to consider is that, the sheer size of space could, I guess, possibly serve as a way to counter aggression, maybe, because you're probably going to spend a lot of time in your own solar system and maybe conquer your own social issues before then. And, maybe you heard something on their radio bubble that wasn't, you weren't particularly fond of, but it seems a bit hard to maintain anger over, the years of travel that it would take to, go tell them that you don't like them.
Right, so to segue into our next point, well, into our next topic, really. How do we currently treat people among us who are different?
With suspicion at best.
Yeah,
Not well in many circumstances. Great deal of fear-mongering.
or various superiority or inferiority complexes.
I mean,
Well,
if
it's
you want to be
fear
treated
even.
nicely, I guess it helps if you're, not perceived as being different, so I guess being white helps.
Wow.
Lovely Western culture.
Um, yeah, I think the conclusion is generally not good. As humans are pretty clannish, so to speak. We
Yeah.
have our those who are like us, or even in small circumstances, our family, those related to us, those who are like those related to us, um, be it our national borders, our ways of thinking alike or being alike, looking alike, various things like this, and they're the real people. They're the good people for most in most circumstances, and anyone else is viewed with suspicion because of their difference or just um, fear, lack of understanding, and to some degree it's understandable. I mean, the only yardstick we ever have to judge other people by is ourselves, and if someone looks or thinks a lot differently to us, then how do we really know, like, how are we able to empathize with them? Or because empathy is like taking their emotions and thinking of them as your own, or thinking of putting yourself in their shoes, I guess is the simple way to put it, where you look at, you relate their experiences to your own and try and um, do that. And that's obviously a lot harder if they're a lot different to you, so it becomes harder to empathize, and then just all the general fear and distrust because you mightn't have known people like this, or you might have had bad experiences with people like this, or the various other historical grievances like wars and so forth that have been fought between people, resulting in like hundreds of years of animosity between different countries. Like, how many Americans do you think still like the Russians? And they never actually went to war. And there's even like various nations that were
Yeah.
fighting in the medieval ages, and people are still like, ooh, we don't really like them guys. They invaded us like 600 years ago.
And I mean, it doesn't help that many politicians will, you know, uh, stoke the fire under these, issues and run on platforms, saying, let's close our country to all people of X background, rather than just having these things, did in the background, they're brought a lot more to the forefront. Isn't really helpful, especially for those of that background.
So what do you think about well, there's the refugee crisis at the moment, um, with the refugees flowing out of the war zone. It's in countries like especially Syria, but still got people coming out of Iran, Iraq. Wait, it might be Iran. Sorry if I got Iran wrong. Afghanistan's another one. Various countries that have recently experienced war and still have people leaving them. This is a situation where different cultures do, um, well, by necessity, um, collide because these people have to go somewhere, and most often that's away from their own people and culture because that's often the problem. Um, they're exiled from their own people and culture for a variety of differing beliefs or um, clan struggles between various factions within their own country, stuff like that. Um, and this whole current trend is, well, it's put a lot of pressure, especially on Europe, where being right next to those countries and quite welcoming to refugees, it's really put a lot of those countries to this test, particularly Germany at the moment, who took in 1.1 million refugees on record. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's a big population growth over the span of. They got it over a couple of weeks because of opening the borders like they did.
I mean, it's
And
really hard to fathom numbers that large.
Well, it's like a Brisbane.
Yeah, I mean, it's a capital city worth of people.
well, an Australian capital city.
Yes.
I mean, I think New York is about 20 million, which is our population.
Yeah, New York's a little ridiculous. But, you know, not all the states in the US have um, capital cities with many millions of people. It might just be a few, if that.
Just bring it back to kind of to what we talked about previously. I think we're a lot more open and excited to discover extraterrestrial aliens, but we're not so much human aliens because there's almost like an element of fear and or oh, it's going to cost us this to take care of them, or it's going to mean changing our lifestyle or accepting things we don't want to accept, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think that's kind of a big reason why. There's many other reasons as well, of course, because racism's been around for thousands of years, if not longer, since start humanity, really. But that's probably why it's still continued.
Yeah, well, when you think extraterrestrials, I mean, unless you think a hostile alien culture come to take our resources, such as Independence Day, often there's no assumption that they're coming here to, take something away from us, or we don't necessarily already mistrust them, in science fiction. But as we've spoken about, there's a huge history of these matters that feeds into things. Some of it's conscious, some of it's unconscious,
And also a bit of
unconscious bias.
discussing.
Sorry, Joel,
As we
go on.
were talking about before too, like people are different. We don't trust them instinctively. They look different, they talk different, they have different culture, different religion, so suspicious. Even if you don't have actual reason to distrust them, just the fact that they're different is reason enough. It's just ingrained in our human mentality to be afraid of people who are different.
Well, we are fond of the familiar.
And this is sort of the funny thing to me in that, like, one person can be really excited about aliens. Oh, we can meet all these other aliens and it'll be so cool. And then they're like, nah, Australia's for the whites, basically. It's like, how do you really think you'd react to aliens? Do you really think it'd be any different? I think part of that is aliens is a complete unknown, and like most unknowns, you just kind of make whatever you want out of it in your own mind. So you can have this perfect ideal of what an alien would be, and if the reality doesn't line up, then you sort of come back to that realization that, oh, we just treat them like human aliens with suspicion and fear or excessive reverence or the manner of ways that we currently treat people.
Yeah, I'm sure at first, at least the reaction would be different, but after a while, mistrust would emerge, or you'd come to realize that the aliens themselves have their own biases and social tendencies that may be similar to our own or entirely different. But unlike with refugees, we've had many years of science fiction speculating a wonderful future where aliens might bring us new technologies or tell us things we've never heard of before, and exotic forms of life, exotic food, exotic art. But we haven't had there's not a whole genre of fiction, I guess, dedicated towards what the benefits the human aliens can bring to us. I mean, that's essentially human history. It's a lot more familiar. Guess you don't want to read about that sort of thing.
Well, not all encounters are peaceful, so it was
No,
mixed.
of course not.
Very
yes.
mixed. Spain and Aztecs and English settlers and everywhere they landed. Yeah, there's a lot of examples.
District 9 is a interesting movie on that topic too, for anyone who's interested. The general premise being, I mean, really, it's just a veiled commentary on refugees. But these aliens, their ship comes here, but it's broken when it gets here, so they end up stuck hovering over South Africa, I think. And then, because they can't get home, and most of the people on the ship don't know much about their technology and various things, it's basically just a giant civilian vessel. They end up in these slums where they're like severely mistreated by the local people and just sort of left there to rot or to be exploited or the various other things.
Which I guess is a dark interpretation of what might happen. I mean, I'd like to think it's not realistic, but it might very well be. Once the novelty wears off, we're not alone in the universe. Then we just start treating them like anyone else, any other human, which often is poorly.
Trying to think of topics without just outright retreading our refugees episode.
Pretty much.
But yeah, so what do, I mean, this is a bit of a tangent, I guess, but I want to talk about it anyway. Did you guys, specifically Joel and Jacob, hear about the Donald Trump and the Pope spat?
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Donald Trump has the right way to deal with aliens, right? You just put up a wall. One's here, don't get in. It's okay. It's okay. So if we have aliens from outer space,
worked for Berlin, didn't it?
No, but if we have aliens from outer space, right? All you got to do then is build a ceiling, and you're all good, right? Walls, yeah. Oh,
just like in Spaceballs, right?
We just put one of those Dyson sphere things around our own planet.
Yeah.
Yes. Doesn't gather energy.
That's the dream.
But then they just hide in the Pacific Ocean and send giant kaiju after us, and the wall doesn't help at all.
It's okay, because we got big punchy robots.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
But in any case, yeah, Trump's actually not very popular with other countries. I think England and a few others have petitions to not let him in.
Really?
Germany called him like the greatest enemy to the world.
Ooh, I heard about England.
And they know,
or Spiegel at least.
like Germany knows about like bad leaders and threats to the world, so I'd be inclined to take their word for it. Although they were bad at recognizing the last one, so although they may have experienced it, maybe their awareness isn't quite where it should be. Who knows? Thinks I'm fun.
So what do you guys think about the Pope's actual comment that any man who thinks of putting up walls isn't a true Christian, or something to that effect?
That's a very interesting statement. That's a really interesting statement. I think it's actually quite a big element of truth to that. Although it's interesting seeing a very religious figure getting so involved in politics as well. But there's a few different issues there. Not issues, but I mean like talking points.
I think it's a fair call to make, to be honest. I mean, I'm all for like not judging, but I think it's fair to make if someone is saying things that are blatantly anti what Jesus said and what the Bible says, I think it's fair to go, what they're saying is no longer Christian speech. The way they're conducting themselves is no longer in a Christian way, and there's nothing about the way that Trump has like crafted his policies or promoted his policies that seems even vaguely Christian. So I think the Pope's not wrong in making that call.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of truth to the Pope's claim there. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the Pope get involved in American politics directly.
Oh, Pope has always been interfering in politics since way, way back in the day. They just do it less now than they used to, but they still do it.
So I have to say that I actually, um, in some ways, I'm with both sides here. I mean, kind of with the Pope in that
Oh,
as you said, um, Trump has not really got any Christian policies or um, doesn't seem to conduct himself in a very Christian way. And
Nah.
obviously, an important part of faith is living it out, um, not just saying you have it. Read the book of James for more on that.
yep.
But
Show your faith by your works.
in this instance, when the comment is um, like it was made in relation to refugees, specifically the wall between, I think it was in Mexico, and he was talking about the wall between um, Mexico and America and the US. But it's kind of like, is that really a core belief of Christianity? To
Yes, yes, it is. Yes.
because there can be good reasons to, like, you could be looking out for um, like you can be wrong and thinking immigrants are a threat or various things like that, or that the country can't handle them, or you just want to maintain your richness, which is the current normal ones. But like it's not really a theological issue. I mean, just as we don't all have quite the same view on all manner of ways of how to live out life, but can still be Christian because we have the right faith of Jesus and we try as best as we can to live out his will as we understand it. I think someone can, in theory, do that while still trying to put up a wall.
Oh, only if they, haven't read the Bible, right? I mean, you read the Bible and it makes it pretty clear from beginning to end, you know, that God is about looking after the refugee, right? Looking after the people who are disadvantaged, looking after the foreigner in your country. This is like from Old Testament all the way through, to New Testament, where like sacrificial love, taking risks to love people, following the example of Jesus. We're like, oh no, we've got to protect ourselves from these weird people. We've got to put walls up. It's not a Christian thing to do. Like there is, I'm sorry, I'm not going to say there's room to disagree on this. I feel like, no, no.
I think for the most part, like the idea behind the wall, that Trump's wall is definitely not good. But I mean, other walls, like, you look at the Great Wall of China. Initially, it wasn't to stop refugees, to stop invaders, so a bit different. But like if the purpose of the wall is to prevent human aid, then yes, no bueno. Um,
Wow,
yeah,
that's like real relevant, like use of language there. I appreciate that.
well, yeah, that kind of was intentional. But anyway, um,
Yeah, no, well,
it,
it
you,
fitted with the shut up job.
yeah, you get the point though. You get the point in that it's not supposed to. It's not the wall as being the wall being a type of structure. It's just a point of denying human rights, eventually, because it's really convenient, not
Yeah, I
because of
think
actual
the
safety risk.
I don't think the Pope has a problem with the like architectural structure, the wall,
No,
right?
it's no, but what
but
I mean is like
but his point is, if you're putting up walls, whether they be literal or metaphorical, to keep people away, keep out people you're scared of, to shut out the refugee, to protect what you've got and hang on to that at all costs, which is Trump's philosophy and his supporters' philosophy. This is ours, we deserve it, no one else deserves it. We shouldn't have to share, we shouldn't have to be any more compassionate than we feel like being at the time. It's that's a point at which, if you are really following Jesus, you should never be able to arrive at that point. And if you do, you need to repent and get back on the right track.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, you may have sold me on that, because
Is that what you
Yes.
expected, Jesse?
well, it was
No,
kind of a
Joel's pretty
half-baked
impassioned
idea,
then.
but like on my end, like my thinking is more, there are things in which we frequently mess up. Like, all Christians don't know how to live life right, and things we mess up with, and it's not really a salvation thing. Like, it doesn't make you unchristian to think that. Well, I mean, it does, but it doesn't make you unsaved to think that, I guess, would be the Christian way of putting it.
Is it
And that's sort of how I took
more
his
of an issue
statement.
that Trump's in a position of power? Like, is it different if someone, high up in in Christianity is having such thoughts versus, someone lower down who hasn't, isn't in a position to influence anyone else, or, hasn't read much of the teachings themselves? Like, is it more of an issue that
Trump is more dangerous because he's got that point of view, but I feel like the view itself is no less opposed to the teaching of the Bible. Whoever holds it, I mean, it's still wrong.
Fair enough.
Just,
I think
you've got
also
a
the
presidential
reason,
candidate standing up and saying,
yeah,
this is the way we should do things, and you've got evangelical Christians standing up and saying, we will put our vote behind the man who says we should act the opposite way to how Jesus would have us act.
yeah. So I think that's where it gets dangerous. Is the reason Trump has power is because many people, in the order of millions, agree with him,
And
and so,
many supposed Christians agree with him. In fact,
yeah,
the most serious fundamentalist, like, we care a lot about Christianity, Christians. Like, yeah, Trump, I don't understand it.
I mean, a lot of Trump's campaign is based on fear-mongering. He stokes a lot of anger and, I guess, disempowerment that people might be feeling. And of course, that's not, I don't like Trump, I don't like what he stands for, but, I mean, he's caught on to something, and he's clearly working it to his favor.
Yeah, I read an article sort of comparing the similarities between Trump and the Pope, mainly in being that they're both sort of anti-establishment. Like, they both stand for the disenfranchised, for the powerless. Like, the Pope's been doing a lot for those within the Catholic Church who've been forgotten or disenfranchised, and looking out for them. And Trump's doing the same for middle-class America, which is super ironic.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah. People in need, people
Trump's
not in
standing
need.
up for the disenfranchised. Sure, okay, make America great again. Okay.
well, there's certain merit in it that people are getting left behind, the upper class, like the ceiling or whatever they call it between upper class and the escalator
Upper
sort of
middle
thing is
class?
broken. Middle class, upper class, lower class to middle class, all that sort of thing. It's stopped because the upper
The rich are getting
class
richer, the
keeps.
poor are getting poorer, and the middle class are moving nowhere.
Yeah, pretty much. And he sort of latched onto that and people's fears,
But
especially
vote for
over the
Bernie.
refugees and
Vote for
everything, and use that. So basically, these people have got huge followings and have become heroes to a lot of people because they're standing against these corrupt systems, keeping the people down. And
all Trump is standing up for is like, hey, here are all the things you hate. I'll get rid of them.
yeah, he really is.
Pretty
But,
much.
Well, hang on. He'll get rid of them by hating them more, not by actually solving the issue. There's a big difference there. No, look. If you get rid
No,
of the
you put
foreign
up a wall,
refugee,
it solves the issue. Dude, just build
that's
a
what
wall.
I mean. All
I
I
mean,
mean
you
is
can
it's,
out hate someone and like you win you win, right? That's
that's
that's,
exactly
that's
yeah.
what he's going for.
so how
Exactly.
hilarious was his actual response? Like, well, when ISIS actually conquers the Vatican, they're going to wish that I was president of America so I could have saved them from ISIS.
Oh, it's cringe.
Donald Trump.
Cringe.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, because all I heard, like a lot of places, just reported that snippet of the Pope has no right questioning people's faith, but then they give you his whole thing, and it's like, oh wow, he said that, really? Then I go back to realizing how can they think this guy's a good idea?
Because he speaks to the people in the way they want him to
But
speak to them.
no. Honestly, people agree with him. It's any sort of politician that has sway, enough people agree with him. It's simple as that. It's if he has X amount, 51% of the vote, he gets whatever power. It's just a sheer numbers game, really. Unfortunately, the media likes controversy, and he's controversial, so he gets to speak a lot more. Plus,
I mean,
self-funded.
I mean, that's one of his things that he's been saying about his campaign, right? He's not taking money like other candidates from other places. He's self-funded. But I mean, it's interesting American politics in general, what's going on at the moment, because Trump is only really beholden to himself, which the Republicans, the GOP, aren't really fond of, I don't imagine. And when their candidates aren't doing as well against him, Rubio, Bush, Cruz, and when he mocks the other Republican candidates as well, I think people see Trump as saying things that aren't supposed to be said, but need to be said. And
Well, ironically, he's alienating, using that word again, alienating the people that I think he's trying to represent, in a way. Like, not everyone, not all of them, some do agree with him, but a lot of the other Republicans who would normally vote for him on a two-party preferred, he's alienating, which is hilarious considering the discussion we just had.
yeah, I mean, I guess Trump's message, it either resonates really well with people or, it doesn't. And it'll be, I mean, I'd say it'd be interesting to see the outcome of this on, American politics, but American politics influence the world, so I want to see the good outcome, not the President Trump American Wall outcome.
Really though, there's so many checks and balances. Him coming to power wouldn't really do all that much. I mean, I'm not American. I don't fully understand all of their checks and balances and so forth, but I mean, that's what they're there for.
I mean, he'll be able to. The thing is, in America at the moment, is because basically in America, you've got the three branches of government. You've got the executive branch, which is the president. You've got the legislative branch and the judicial branch. I think those are the three. Essentially, like the president, the Supreme Court, and Congress. Congress is currently Republican controlled, and with the death of Antonin Scalia, or Scalia, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but the Supreme Court is now 4-4. They need another justice, and the Republican senators in Congress are trying to block Obama putting forward another candidate, because it is the president's job to put forward candidates. Because obviously, if Obama puts forth a candidate, it will tip the balance of power in the Supreme Court to to the left, to more progressive. Because at the moment it's 4-4. People put in by Republicans and people put in by Democrats. And the Senate is controlled by the Republicans at present, which is why it's been hard, I think, for Obama to get legislation through. So if Trump put in and Congress was still Republican, it would be easier for him to get things done. Assuming, of course, that the Republicans agreed with him, which, from what we've seen, they don't always do. I know more about American politics than I probably should.
Well, it is important politics. Not the
Yeah.
only
Well,
or the most important politics, like a lot of people think, but they are one of the world's superpowers.
Well, I think it's interesting. It seems like, particularly on, I guess, even human aliens, Australia seems to be semi-influenced by how America treats their human aliens. It seems, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like some of our policies are within striking distance of some of America's policies at the time. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I don't know, just something I kind of, there seems like a little bit of correlation there.
Well, I mean, America is quite influential. And
Well,
we
yeah, it's
are,
like if it's okay
I
for
guess.
America to put up a wall, then it's okay for us to block the boats. That sort of logic exists.
It's already
Well,
okay for us to block the boats. Come on.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
And there's a
it's
degree
no
to
longer
which
like,
this
yeah.
is a worldwide phenomenon now. Like, I
Yeah.
started off with that big talk about all the refugee crisis because it's influencing a lot of countries. There's a lot of ways in which there's big strain on Europe at the moment over what to do. Some countries have gotten very anti refugees. Some countries have, like Germany, are pretty pro refugee and still want to help them, but they need to share the load because even a big country like Germany can't really deal with too many more than the million refugees they just took in. Then you got countries like Greece that are just absolutely swarmed, or especially Malta, I think. Some of the small island countries, especially, are absolutely swarmed with refugees and basically choking under it because they just can't support it. Or even the ones near Greece, like I've forgotten which one, but some of the countries near Greece have just had to open their borders and let the refugees through because they can't deal with that many people being there, and they need the bigger countries to do it. So there's this sort of wave around the world at the moment of becoming very closed off and anti-refugee and look out for yourselves. And this is playing on something I wanted to bring up before, the um, like anyone, all people can feel alienated. And I sort of touched on before how um, Trump sort of appeals to a middle class that's feeling alienated by um, the systems and the people around it and all this sort of thing. Like, a lot of this plays on that fear that, hey, these guys are trying to take what little you still have from all this. They're going to make things worse for you. And they're sort of very successful at doing that. There's also an element of yeah, so it's sort of playing on that too, in the current class struggles and like not liking current governments, thinking they're doing the wrong thing, thinking justice systems are wrong. But this is just a pendulum swing back from the general left-leading policies that have been going for the past 5 years, because history is a series of pendulums, basically. People go too far in one direction, so they swing back too far in the other direction, and ad infinitum.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
yeah, it's just a shame that these things have to have such a cost in human lives. And it's important to note a few things too, like we're all sort of in the pro-refugee camp here, and as to Christians probably agree that to really be Christian, you do have to, well, to try and follow Christ, you have to be like him in letting in, especially the different disenfranchised, treating the alien among you like as yourself. Like that's throughout the Old Testament a lot, mistreating the widows and orphans, that sort of thing. But there are various reasons why countries can't handle refugees, and there's various refugees that, like, they're human too. They're flawed and have their issues, and some people just abuse the system. But again, that doesn't mean we shouldn't help them, just in the same way we shouldn't not give welfare because some people abuse welfare systems.
I mean, I guess it's also, well, you mentioned before the huge number of refugees in Greece, not Greece, sorry, Germany, over 1 million. And, even if, every single one of those people, were entirely peaceful and upstanding citizens, you still have the problem of how do you house 1 million people? I mean, you need essentially, you need infrastructure, housing, supplies, hygiene, medical care. It's, I mean, big issue.
And it's not just a issue of get them in and house them. You have to assimilate these people. They have to become part of the country, part of the culture, learn the language, and various things like that. There's parts for everyone to be playing in this that need to be played.
Unlike typical population growth, it, is a lot more sudden. So suddenly you've got to find, 1 million people jobs and, ways to contribute to society, which is a huge task. But I guess part of the reason why people, might feel negative towards, refugees if, the jobs that they work are, perhaps unskilled jobs or, just labor, their jobs might be at risk of being replaced by these people. And I guess that's where some of the grievances might come from.
So to end, just wanted to elaborate on that point for any listeners of, was just reading an article of, like, on Germany and how various people are dealing with the struggles and that. And one of the big things that came through to help refugees to settle in and to be part of society is to, well, a big one was just learning having people to teach them the language. So if you're someone who could do that, who knows or likes a couple of languages, then maybe look into that. But the main thing was that these people wanted to feel part of the culture they're in. They needed to interact with the natives of the culture, to teach them some of the things about the cultural differences or how to do various things in the country. Sometimes even things like, you can trust this government, it's not corrupt, it's trying to help you, and these police aren't going to, like, pull you off into an alley and murder you, stuff like that. But also just having friends of that culture. Like, one person was doing, actually there was a couple, one started like a dance group for refugees and non-refugees to sort of help them to meet and get to know each other while doing an activity. Another was doing swimming lessons to try and help them and do the same thing. And one guy even started well, he probably had a cafe, but they have a cafe going for explicitly for that person. Come meet these people from various nations and have them learn from them as they learn from you, stuff like that. So if you're in a area with lots of refugees, or a country with lots of refugees, these are some practical ways you can help. Just go and meet some of them, go and be a friend to these people, help them do their shopping or a couple of things like that, or especially just talk to them, help them to get to know you and to feel a part of the culture and the country they're coming to, because that's the main cause of problems further on down the road. When people don't feel they have a stake in the society they're in, bad things happen. Like, it's probably the reason for a lot of crime in like African American society in America. It's pretty new that people had a realistic chance of a stake in the culture that they were in. Most people still, and they still face all manner of discrimination and charges against that. And when you're faced with that decision, you turn to places where you can have an impact and a job and a stake, which is normally criminal.
Yeah.
Or it's just take it by violence. I mean, history is full of several examples of that happening too, like Fall of Rome era.
Just several, Jesse.
Several is an indeterminate number.
But well said.
Really, a lot of our ancestors fell into that. I mean, here in Australia, we're convicts. A lot of Americans, if there are any of you out there, a lot of your people left because there wasn't opportunity for them in England, but there was in the New World. Like, you can just sort of think of them as these newcomers as your own ancestors. Try and help them to settle in, to build a new life so that several generations down the line their children can be like you are now.
Good.
Alright, and that'll be all for this week. Next week will be, actually, because of various delays, next week will also be a podcast where we are going to be discussing human cloning and genetic medicine, genetic modification, sort of the ethics surrounding all of that. So tune in next week to see that. You can either watch us live on Twitch at what time do we start? 8:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Is that what we're in?
Yeah. No daylight saving.
Yeah, if it's daylight savings, it's 9:30.
It's just Theola Gaming on Twitch.
Yes.
And I just wanted to issue a correction for something I said earlier. I believe I said that Kepler orbits Earth. It's actually orbiting in a trailing orbit. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't want to be the astronomer that mixes up things like that.
I was under the impression that he was buried in the Earth, but there you go. Now I know.
Hey, pretty fancy send-off.
Yeah. In other ways, if you want to actually watch me playing a random game while we do these discussions, check out the Theola Gaming YouTube channel. If not, then check me out at ofgodandmind.com and pick up the podcast from there, just the audio file. And see you all next week.
For watching
Catch us later.
/
Yep.
listening.
Or both.
Right, I just got to crash this plane real quick for an explosive send-off.
No one else, well, unless if they're podcasting, Jesse, they can't see